I'm recording this from my room in the nursing home. Tomorrow I have a risky surgery. My 5 children don't know, because none of them have answered my calls in 2 years. My name is Eleanor. I am 89 years old. I'm going to tell you how I raised 5 children alone, with nothing but my own 2 hands. And today, I live in this cold room, utterly alone, waiting for a surgery they won't even know happened. If you have parents, please, listen to the end. It might save your family. It's a strange thing, reaching this age. You expect to be surrounded by the laughter of your children, the chaos of your grandchildren. But all I hear is the hum of the fluorescent lights and the creak of my own bones. I remember their little faces, their tiny hands clutching mine. 5 of them. John, Sarah, Thomas, Maria, and little David. I poured every ounce of my being into them. Every sacrifice was for them. Every tear, every struggle was met with the hope of a warm, loving family around me in my twilight years. But hope, it seems, is a luxury I can no longer afford. The nurses here are kind. Bless their hearts, but they aren't family. They don't know my stories. This room, it holds my body, but my heart is still out there, searching for the love I gave away so freely. But to understand how I got here, I need to go back to the days when we were happy, when my children were my world, and I was theirs. It's been 1,247 days since my John, my eldest, last answered my phone call. Sarah, Thomas, Maria, David, their numbers are just silent entries in my worn address book now. But I remember when John used to call me Mama, my queen, his voice booming with a warmth that could melt winter snow. I remember the rich, sweet smell of my homemade peach cobbler filling our small kitchen. The joyous chaos of all 5 of them crammed around our chipped wooden table, fighting over who got the last piece. Their laughter, a symphony of pure, unadulterated happiness, was the soundtrack to my life. If you could see what I discovered tucked away in an old, dusty diary, a secret I kept for decades, a secret about their father and my struggle, maybe you'd understand why I'm telling you this now. Maybe it would save your family from the same heartbreak mine suffered. Wait, I haven't told you the part that makes me cry every night yet. Those early days, they were hard. Oh, they were hard. But they were filled with so much love, so much purpose. After their father left, it was just me and my 5 little ones. John, always the responsible one, barely 8 years old, trying to help me carry groceries. Sarah, my little artist, drawing pictures of our happy family on every scrap of paper she could find. Thomas, with his nose always in a book, already dreaming of universities. Maria, my sweet little peacemaker, always mediating between her older brothers. And David, my baby, clinging to my skirts, his tiny hand never wanting to let go. My hands, calloused from working 2 jobs, scrubbing floors and sewing clothes late into the night, were also the hands that braided Sarah's hair, tucked John into bed, and held David's small fingers as he learned to walk. I was their anchor, their protector, their whole world, and they, my beautiful boisterous brood, were mine. I remember one Christmas Eve, a harsh winter had brought a terrible ice storm, and our old furnace had given out. The house was freezing. I saw the disappointment on their faces, the silent questions in their eyes, wondering if Santa would even find us. I bundled them all onto my bed, piling every blanket we owned on top of them, and started telling stories of magic, of resilience, of a mother's unending love. We baked cookies over a small space heater, filling the house with the scent of ginger and warmth, and for one night, the cold, the poverty, the absence of their father, it all faded. Their eyes, wide with wonder, looked up at me as if I was the strongest woman in the world. And in that moment, for them, I was. I vowed then that no matter what, they would always feel safe, loved, and cherished. That they would have a mother who fought for them. Always, John, my strong boy. He was so proud when he was the first in our family to go to college. I remember saving every penny, sacrificing my own meals sometimes, just to make sure he had textbooks and a warm coat. The day he got his acceptance letter, he rushed home, waving it in the air, his face beaming. "Mama, I did it! We did it!" he cried, embracing me so tightly I thought my old bones would crack. We both cried that day, tears of joy, of triumph. He was going to break the cycle, he was going to be someone. And he did. He built a successful life, a beautiful family. He used to call me every Sunday, just to talk, to tell me about his week, to ask for my advice. "No one understands me like you do, Mama," he'd say. I still hear his voice sometimes, in the deafening silence of this room. Sarah, my artistic spirit, filled our small house with music and color. She dreamed of being a painter, and though we couldn't afford expensive art supplies, I'd bring home discarded cardboard, old newspapers, anything she could draw on. Her vibrant world burst from every corner of our home. I kept a small framed watercolor she painted for me when she was 12, a bright abstract piece she called My Mother's Heart. It used to sit on my nightstand, a testament to her talent and my love. Now it's packed away in a box in the storage room, a casualty of the nursing home's strict personal items policy. I remember taking her to her first art show, her nervous excitement, her eyes shining as people admired her work. She was radiant. She called me her biggest fan. Then there was Thomas, my quiet, brilliant one. He devoured books, always questioning, always learning. He taught himself how to fix anything, from our sputtering old toaster to the neighbor's broken radio. I remember him spending hours in the library, fueled by the sandwiches I'd pack for him, sometimes going without lunch myself, so he had enough. He got a scholarship to engineering school, and his letters home were filled with complex diagrams and excited descriptions of his projects. He'd come home for holidays, a whirlwind of new ideas and inventions, always making sure to fix anything that was broken around the house before he left. "You raised me right, Mama," he'd say. "You taught me to think." Maria, my beautiful, gentle Maria. She had a heart of pure gold, always putting others first. She'd bring home stray animals, comfort her siblings, and always make sure I had a cup of tea after a long day. She chose a career in nursing, dedicating her life to caring for others. I was so incredibly proud of her compassion, her unwavering kindness. I remember her telling me about her patients, how she wanted to make a difference in their lives, just like I made a difference in hers. "You taught me empathy, Mama," she'd say. "You taught me what it means to truly care." She used to visit me every week, even after she had her own children. My little granddaughter, Lily, Maria's daughter, used to sit on my lap, her tiny fingers tracing the lines on my wrinkled hands, asking me to tell her stories. Now, even Maria's visits have become a distant memory, a fading echo of a once constant presence. And David, my sweet, mischievous baby. He was the youngest, full of energy and charm. He'd climb trees, play pranks, and always knew how to make me laugh, even on my hardest days. He loved sports, and I'd spend countless evenings cheering him on from the sidelines, my voice hoarse, my heart bursting with pride as he scored a goal or hit a home run. I remember his graduation, the last of my children to leave home. He looked at me, a young man now, eyes full of promise, and said, "I'll always be here for you, Mama. Always." That was the promise. That was the bond. That was the love I poured my entire life into building. My hands, though gnarled and trembling now, still remember the feel of their little hands in mine, the weight of a sleeping child against my shoulder. My mind replays those moments, those precious memories, over and over, like a worn-out film reel. They are all I have left of a life once rich with laughter and purpose. The silence here in this room is so loud, it often feels like a physical ache, a gaping wound where their voices used to be. I sometimes find myself talking to the old, faded photographs on my small table, whispering stories of their childhood, reminding them of the mother who gave everything. "Do you remember John, Sarah, Thomas, Maria, David?" I ask the smiling faces frozen in time. They just look back at me, eternally young, eternally vibrant, oblivious to the silence that has swallowed their mother's twilight years. It didn't happen all at once, this quiet vanishing. It was gradual, like the tide slowly pulling back from the shore, leaving me stranded. At first, it was subtle. A missed call here, a hurried, "I'm busy, Mama. I'll call you back there." I'd make excuses for them. John was so successful, Sarah so busy with her art, Thomas with his big projects, Maria with her demanding nursing career, and young Lily, and David, always so energetic, surely caught up in his life. I understood. I truly did. My children were important people, making their mark on the world. I was proud. The first real crack in my heart, the first chill that truly seeped in, came on my 85th birthday. 85 years. A milestone, wouldn't you say? I woke up that morning, my old hands trembling, with a mixture of excitement and anticipation. I baked a small cake, just like I used to, filling the tiny apartment with the scent of vanilla. I set the table for 6, even though my dining room only really fit 4, placing out the chipped teacups they'd all used as children. I waited. The phone, usually a lifeline, stayed stubbornly silent. No calls, no cards, no surprise visits. Not even a quick message from John, my reliable John. The cake, my little creation, sat on the table, uneaten, growing stale as the hours ticked by. I told myself they were just busy, that they'd remember, that the post was slow. But deep down, a cold knot began to form. My 85th birthday passed in silence, just me and the ticking clock, and the ghost of their laughter echoing in my memory. After that, the calls became fewer and farther between. John, who once called every Sunday, now only returned my messages sporadically. Sarah would reply to texts weeks later. Thomas became a phantom, his voice a distant memory. Maria, my caring Maria, would still call, but her visits became, "I'll try next month, Mama. Lily has a recital." And David, my baby David, who promised to always be there, he simply stopped. The excuses grew thinner, more transparent. "Traffic, Mama," John would say, despite living 10 minutes away. "Such a bad flu going around," as Sarah would claim, even as I saw her glowing social media posts with friends. My own children, my precious 5, were weaving a tapestry of distance and vague apologies, each thread pulling them further away, leaving me to unravel alone. But what happened next? That truly destroyed what little hope I had left. It was John, my eldest, who brought it up first. He came to my tiny apartment, not alone, but with Maria. I remember the air in the room feeling thick, heavy, like before a storm. John cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze as he fiddled with his tie. "Mama," he started, his voice unnaturally formal. "We've been talking, all of us, and we think it's time you considered a nursing home." The words hung in the air, sharp and cold, slicing through the warmth of my memories. A nursing home, my home, the one I'd scrimped and saved for, the one where I'd raised them, where every wall held a memory, was no longer good enough. Maria, my sweet Maria, stepped forward. Her eyes softened, but her voice held a firmness I'd never heard before. "It's for your own good, Mama. Really. You're getting older, and the house, it's too much for you. We worry. Here you'll have round-the-clock care, friends your own age, activities. Activities? As if I longed for bingo when what I truly yearned for was the touch of my daughter's hand, the sound of my son's voice, a real hug. But this is my home," I whispered, my voice barely audible, my heart sinking like a stone in my chest. This is where I belong. They looked at each other, a silent conversation passing between them, a shared resolve that made me feel utterly helpless. "We think it's for the best, Mama," John repeated, his voice devoid of the "Mama my queen" affection I remembered. It was not a request, it was a sentence. The day I moved. That's a day etched into my soul, in shades of gray. It wasn't a whirlwind of activity, no bustling family helping me pack, no excited promises of decorating my new room. No, John arranged for a small moving company. Maria came, but she seemed distant, constantly checking her phone. I remember standing in the doorway of my empty living room, the echoes of a lifetime bouncing off the bare walls. My hands instinctively reached for the small framed watercolor Sarah had painted. My mother's heart. It was packed in a box labeled miscellaneous, tucked away by the movers with impersonal efficiency. I also had to leave behind Thomas's old chemistry set, the one he'd used to create all sorts of harmless but wonderfully smelly experiments. It was tucked away in the attic, too cumbersome to take, too precious to throw away. A little piece of him, left behind. My home, the sanctuary where I had nurtured 5 vibrant lives, became a shell. As the last box was carried out, and I prepared to leave for what felt like my exile, I turned to Maria. "Will you visit, my little girl?" I asked, my voice cracking, a silent plea in my eyes. She gave me a tight, almost forced smile. "Of course, Mama. Every week. We'll be back soon to get you settled, don't you worry." She even brought Lily, my precious granddaughter, who was too young to understand the finality of the moment. Lily hugged my legs, her innocent eyes looking up at me, and I held on to that small gesture of love, that small promise, as if it was the last anchor to my past. "We'll be back soon." Those words, a balm to my raw wound, would become the cruelest lie I have ever heard. Every week. Soon. Empty promises that faded with the closing door of the nursing home van. The days here blurred into an endless parade of bland meals and scheduled activities I had no heart for. The silence in my room was no longer just loud. It was suffocating. It filled every corner, every crevice of my being, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. I tried to call them, of course, for weeks, for months. At first, they answered. Their voices clipped, hurried. "Mama, I'm just leaving for work." "Mama, I'm with a client." Then the calls went straight to voicemail. Then the numbers themselves seemed to change. Or perhaps they had simply blocked me. My worn address book became a monument to silence, a testament to what I had lost. I kept a small calendar on my wall, meticulously circling the dates, hoping, praying for a visit. Lily's birthday, my great-grandson's baptism, even just a Tuesday afternoon tea. Each empty circle was a fresh stab, a new layer of ice forming around my heart. I'd clean my room, put on my best cardigan just in case someone would appear at my door. A joyful surprise. But the only knock I ever heard was the nurse, bringing my medication, or a sterile, "Time for dinner, Eleanor." My hope, once an unyielding flame, flickered and threatened to extinguish altogether. I thought of John's success, Thomas's brilliance, Sarah's art, Maria's empathy, David's charm. How could the children I raised, the lives I poured myself into, simply forget the woman who made them possible? How could they, with all their full lives, not spare a single moment, a single thought, for their mama? My John, my Sarah, my Thomas, my Maria, my David. They were just names I whispered to myself now, ghosts of a love I could no longer grasp. I sometimes wonder what they tell their own children. Do they speak of their old mother, alone in a nursing home? Or do they paint a different picture? A convenient fiction where I am happy, content, and not a burden. Do they even remember my peach cobbler, my stories of Christmas Eve, the way I fought for them, always? I remember a nurse, a young woman named Clara, finding me one afternoon, tears silently streaming down my face as I clutched a photo of all 5 of them, young and smiling. She asked if I was okay. I just nodded, pretending to be fine, not wanting to be a bother. "Oh, just thinking about my wonderful children," I choked out, a lie so familiar it almost felt like truth. The shame, the crushing shame of being abandoned, was a heavy cloak I wore every single day. You know what's worse than death? Being alive and forgotten. Every morning I wake up to the same pale sunlight filtering through the thin curtains of my nursing home room. There's no purpose, no bustle, no eager little voices calling, "Mama," from the hallway. Just the silent stretch of a new day, mirroring the endless, silent stretch of the old one. I rise, dress myself in the same practical clothes, and walk to the dining room for a breakfast of lukewarm porridge and weak coffee. The other residents are polite, some offer a small smile, but their eyes, like mine, hold the ghosts of a different life, a different family. We eat in a quiet symphony of clinking spoons, each of us alone in our own worlds, our own memories. No one asks about my day. No one shares a silly story. The silence around the table is a heavy blanket, muffling every sound but the beat of my own lonely heart. Back in my room, I sit by the window, my hands clasped in my lap, looking out at a world that seems to have forgotten me. I pick up the old faded photographs. John with his first bicycle, Sarah at her high school graduation, Thomas holding a trophy, Maria in her nurse's uniform, David grinning after scoring a goal. Do you remember my John? I whisper to the smiling faces. How much you loved that bike. I saved for months to get it for you. My voice is a frail flutter in the empty air, answered only by the dusty silence. My phone, a plastic relic on my nightstand, sits dormant. I still charge it every night, a futile act of hope. But it never rings with their names, not on Christmas, not on Mother's Day, and not on my birthday, which was last week. 89 years old, just another Tuesday. No calls, no cards, just the kind nurse, Clara, bringing me a cupcake from the kitchen. My body, once strong and tireless, is starting to betray me more often now. My knees ache with a dull, persistent throb. My breathing sometimes feels shallow, a little flutter in my chest that worries me. I try not to think about it too much. I don't want to be a bother. Who would I tell anyway? My children. They have their own lives, their own health concerns, I suppose. It's hard to imagine them stopping their busy worlds for an old woman's aches and pains. The doctor here is good, very professional, but there's a clinical detachment to his care. It's not the same as a child's concerned voice, a loving hand on your forehead. Sometimes late at night, when the pain is at its worst, I just whisper their names into the darkness, hoping, foolishly, that somewhere, somehow, they might hear me. If you think what you've heard so far is sad, prepare yourself. One sunny afternoon, a rare burst of warmth for this time of year, I decided to sit in the nursing home garden. The roses were in bloom, their petals a vibrant splash of color against the drab gray of my life. I was watching a butterfly flit from one bloom to another, finding a tiny, fleeting moment of peace. When I heard it, laughter. Real, joyous, uninhibited laughter. It was coming from a family gathered a few benches away. A young couple, their faces bright with affection, were there with their little boy, no older than 5 or 6, and an elderly man, his white hair a halo around a beaming face. The little boy, a whirlwind of energy, was running towards the old man, his arms outstretched, shouting, "Grandpa! Grandpa, look what I made!" In his hand, he clutched a crudely drawn picture, a splash of colors I recognized as a child's masterpiece. The grandfather, his eyes crinkling at the corners with pure, unadulterated delight, bent down, not with the stiffness I felt in my own bones, but with an eagerness that made my heart ache. He scooped the little boy into a bear hug, lifting him effortlessly, as if the years had never touched his strength. The boy buried his face in his grandfather's neck, giggling. "It's for you, Grandpa! It's a picture of us!" he exclaimed, his voice clear and bright. The young parents, standing a little distance away, watched the scene with soft, knowing smiles, a silent testament to the love that bound them. I watched, hidden behind a thick rosebush, a silent, unseen observer to a scene of profound and devastating joy. The grandfather held the drawing with such reverence, his calloused fingers tracing the crayon lines, as if they were the most precious treasure on earth. He talked to the boy, asking about the colors, the shapes, his voice a gentle rumble of affection. Then he looked up at the young couple, his children, and his eyes met theirs in a silent exchange of love and gratitude. The daughter reached out, gently patting her father's arm, her eyes full of warmth. "He missed you, Dad," she said, her voice filled with a tenderness that I remembered receiving so many years ago. The son-in-law, a tall, kind-faced man, came over and placed a hand on the old man's shoulder, a gesture of respect and connection. They were a family, a unit, connected by invisible threads of love and shared history. My breath caught in my throat. I saw Maria's lily in that little boy. I saw John's warmth in the son-in-law's hand. I saw Sarah's gentle touch in the daughter's pat. For a moment, a cruel, fleeting moment, I imagined it was my family, my John, my Sarah, my Thomas, my Maria, my David, bringing my lily, or perhaps a new great-grandchild, to visit their mama in the garden. I imagined Lily's tiny fingers tracing the lines on my hands, asking for a story. I imagined Maria telling me about her week, John asking for my advice. The image was so vivid, so real, that for a split second I felt a warmth spread through my chest, a ghost of happiness. Then the illusion shattered. The laughter continued, but it wasn't for me. The hugs, the shared glances, the simple everyday acts of love. They were for someone else's father, someone else's grandfather. A tear, hot and heavy, escaped my eye and traced a lonely path down my wrinkled cheek. Then another, and another. I pressed my hand against my mouth to stifle the quiet sobs that threatened to escape. The silence in my own life, the absolute void where once there was such vibrant life, crashed down on me with an unbearable weight. My hands, which had braided Sarah's hair and held David's tiny fingers, which had worked tirelessly to provide for 5 children, now trembled with a longing so deep it felt like a physical wound. I was invisible, forgotten, watching a scene of family love that I, too, had once known, that I had poured my entire life into building. And yet, here I was, an outsider, a silent specter, watching another family live the life I had always envisioned for myself. And it was at that moment that I started to wonder, where did I go wrong? And it was at that moment that I started to wonder, where did I go wrong? I spent months asking myself that same question, replaying every moment, every decision, searching for the flaw in my mothering, the seed of neglect I might have sown. Was I too strict? Too lenient? Did I work too much? Did I not work enough? The guilt, a constant companion, gnawed at me, telling me that I was to blame for this gaping void in my life. I clung to that guilt in a strange way, because it felt like the last connection to them, a reason for their absence that didn't shatter my belief in the love I'd poured into them. Until a letter, a single envelope, changed the question to, what have they become? The letter arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under my door by Clara, the kind nurse. It wasn't a birthday card nor a holiday greeting. It was thick, official, from a law firm I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I opened it, the paper crackling like dry leaves. Inside, a formal document. It detailed a complex lawsuit, naming John, my eldest, my successful John, as the primary defendant. It spoke of bankruptcy, of failed investments, of a massive debt. But what stopped my breath, what made my old heart lurch in my chest, was a single paragraph buried deep within the legal jargon. It stated that a significant sum, designated as initial capital contribution from Eleanor Vance, was now irretrievably lost, part of the assets being seized. It was the money from the sale of my small house, the house I had raised them in, the one I had scrimped and saved to buy. When John had come to me, years ago, full of grand plans for his new business venture, he had promised it would be my nest egg, my security. He had convinced me to invest it, to trust him. "It's for our future, Mama," he'd said. "Yours and mine." Now, it was gone. All of it. My John, the boy who broke the cycle, who promised me security, had lost everything I had. But not just my money. He had lost our home, the very foundation of my security, the legacy I had intended for all of them, the house where Sarah painted her mother's heart, where Thomas fixed everything, where Maria brought Lily to visit, where David promised to always be there. All those memories, all that history, all the hard-earned equity I had built, entrusted to him, was now dissolved into legal papers and bankrupt promises. It wasn't the money that truly broke me. It was the chilling realization of what it represented. It wasn't just my savings. It was the tangible embodiment of my sacrifice, my trust, my unwavering belief in his future. And he had gambled it away, squandered it, and then abandoned me to face the consequences alone in this sterile room. This wasn't what I wanted for them. This wasn't the success, the happiness, the stable, loving lives I had envisioned. My pain wasn't a bitter satisfaction, not a vindictive. "I told you so." It was a deep, aching disappointment that twisted in my gut. I had wanted them to thrive, to be good, honorable people, to build lives filled with integrity and love, not to crumble under the weight of their own ambition and greed, or worse, to lose the very things I had given them, and then discard the giver. I remember John as a child, always wanting the biggest piece of cake, the newest toy. I'd attributed it to childish exuberance, to a natural competitive spirit. He'll learn to share, I'd told myself. He'll grow out of it. But now, looking at this cold, hard letter, I saw those childhood traits, magnified, distorted, manifesting in a devastating adult reality. The ambition I had nurtured, the drive I had encouraged had become a consuming fire, burning away not only his own future but also my past. It was then that the question shifted in my heart, from where did I go wrong to what have they become? I hadn't gone wrong. I had given them everything, my time, my love, my last pennies, my very home. They had chosen to discard not just me, but the values, the principles, the very foundation I had tried to instill. They chose paths where their own desires overshadowed their promises, their responsibilities, their love. This wasn't a consequence of my parenting. It was a consequence of their choices. Their abandonment wasn't a reflection of my worth as a mother, but of their own inability to hold on to something truly precious. Family, loyalty, the simple, quiet love of a mother. What I'm about to reveal explains everything, and it will break your heart. I sat there, the crumpled letter in my trembling hands for what felt like hours. The fluorescent lights hummed, casting a sterile glow on my tears. I looked at the old, faded photographs on my nightstand again. John, Sarah, T. Homus, Maria, David. Their smiling faces mocked me. Or perhaps they mirrored the lost innocence, the promise that had somehow been broken. This wasn't the legacy I wanted to leave them, nor the reality I wanted to discover. My John, once my proud boy, now entangled in a web of financial ruin, and all of them, silent in their absence, seemingly oblivious to the depths of his fall, or perhaps unwilling to acknowledge it. There was no thought of confrontation, no desire to call him and scream. What would be the point? He was already lost. I gently folded the letter, tucking it into a worn, leather-bound diary I kept hidden under my mattress. It was a diary I hadn't touched in years, filled with stories of their childhood, of my hopes and dreams for them. Now, it held the bitter truth of their adulthood. I wouldn't seek revenge. I wouldn't call the lawyers. I wouldn't tell the other children. What good would it do? It wouldn't bring back my John, the one who called me Mama, my queen. It wouldn't bring back my security. It would only bring more pain, more bitterness. Instead, I took out a pen, and with my old shaky hand, I wrote a single line on a blank page in that diary, right after the last entry from when David left for college. The cost of silence is more than just loneliness. It is the slow erosion of a soul. I closed the diary, securing the truth within its pages, a silent, solitary testament. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about acceptance. A cold, stark acceptance of a reality I could no longer deny. My children had chosen their path, and this was where it had led them. And me. I held that leather-bound diary in my lap, its weight feeling heavy, not with memories of joy, but with the profound sadness of what could have been. With this truth in my hands, there's only one thing left for me to say before the end. And now, the message that could change the life of whoever is watching. If you're watching this, if you have elderly parents, if you still have the chance to pick up the phone, to drive a few miles, to simply say a name, please listen to an old woman's final plea. One day, if you are lucky enough to reach this age, you might find yourself in my place, staring at nothing but the faded pattern on your wallpaper, waiting for a phone call that never rings, a visit that never comes. The silence will become your loudest companion, and your memories, both sweet and bitter, will be the only family you have left. My John, my Sarah, my Thomas, my Maria, my David. Once, they were my whole world. Now they are just whispers in the wind, echoes of a life I once had. Do you know what it would mean? Just a 5-minute call? just to hear a familiar voice asking how I am, truly, not a hurried, "I'm busy, Mama," but a real conversation. It would be like winning the lottery, not of money, but of love. A simple photo of my granddaughter, Lily, playing in the park, sent to my phone, would brighten my entire week. An unexpected, "I love you," whispered into a voicemail, would be a treasure I'd replay 100 times. These aren't grand gestures. They aren't expensive gifts. They are the currency of connection, the lifeline of a lonely heart. When you're old, when your world shrinks to the four walls of a room, these small tokens of remembrance are everything. They are the proof that you still matter, that you still exist in someone's world. I've had a lifetime to learn what truly matters. It's not the big house, the successful career, the money in the bank. It's the warmth of a child's hug, the shared laughter over a simple meal, the comfort of knowing you are loved and remembered. It's the stories you tell, the memories you build, the hand you hold. I worked my entire life to give my children everything, sacrificing my own dreams, my own comfort. And in the end, what I craved most, what I yearn for with every fiber of my being, is not the return of my investment, not the grand life they built with the foundation I provided. No, it's just them, their presence, their time, their love. Please don't leave it for later. Don't tell yourself you'll call tomorrow or visit next week. Later might be too late. Next week might never come. Life is fragile. And time? Oh, time is a cruel thief. It steals moments, then days, then years, until suddenly there are no more laters left. Hug your parents today. Tell them you love them today. Listen to their stories, even if you've heard them 100 times. For them, those stories are their legacy, their connection to you. For you, they will become precious treasures when they are gone. Don't let regret be the final emotion you feel about your parents. Don't let their last memories be of a silent phone and an empty chair. Tomorrow I have a risky surgery. The doctors, bless their kind but distant hearts, have explained the procedure, the risks, the recovery. I signed the forms, my old hand shaky but resolute. I haven't told my children. What would be the point? They haven't answered my calls in 2 years. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't come. The truth I wrote in my diary about John and the lost money isn't the only secret I've kept. My heart, it has been failing me, slowly, steadily. This surgery, it's a chance at a few more quiet years perhaps, or perhaps a final sleep. Either way, it will happen alone. Just me and the kindness of strangers. I still have hope, you see. Even after everything, even after the crushing disappointment, the years of silence, the revelation of John's betrayal, I still carry a tiny ember of hope in my heart. A foolish, stubborn hope that maybe, just maybe, one of them will remember. That one of them will feel a pang, a whisper of a memory, and simply come, not to save me, not to forgive me, but just to be there, for a moment, to hold my hand, to say goodbye, or hello, just one last time. Is that too much to ask? Is it too much to ask for the children I poured my entire life into, to grant their mother one final moment of love before I close my eyes forever? This was the heart-wrenching story of Eleanor, one among millions of abandoned elderly people whose silent suffering often goes unheard. Her voice, fragile yet resolute, carried the weight of a lifetime of sacrifice, of a love given freely, and then seemingly forgotten. She poured her entire being into raising 5 children, only to find herself alone in her twilight years, facing a risky surgery with no family by her side. Her hope, a tiny ember refusing to die, is a testament to the enduring unconditional love of a mother. If Eleanor's story touched your heart, if her whispered plea resonated deep within you, please don't put off that call, that visit, until tomorrow. Don't let your parents wonder if they still matter, if they are still loved. Time doesn't go back. It marches relentlessly forward, and regret is often the only feeling that has no cure. It is a wound that never truly heals. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, who needs to be reminded of what truly matters before it's too late. And if you have elderly parents, if you're lucky enough to still have them in your life, Hug them for Eleanor. Hug them for all the forgotten parents who yearn for that simple touch, that quiet reassurance. Hug them while you still can, for those moments are more precious than any worldly success or possession. Let their golden years be filled with your presence, not with silent despair. Subscribe to the Portraits of Life Soul Pain channel for more stories that remind us of the profound truth about family, love, and the time we have left.